Just to make today even worse for the government, Treasurer Jim Chalmers seen this morning to suggest not all the Jewish fears about this rise of Jew hatred really were justified. He said this not once, not twice, but 3 times. But here's 2 examples.
Look, this is obviously a terrifying development, and what it shows is that the fears that a lot of Australians in the Jewish community have are not always unfounded. This is a chilling course of events, deeply troubling, unsettling, and what it shows is that the fears in the Jewish community are not always unfounded.
Chalmers has since said he misspoke and has apologised, saying, "My intention was to share and acknowledge the very real and understandable fears and concerns in the Jewish community in light of recent events. I could have and should have expressed that more clearly, and I'm sorry I didn't." Joining me is most Thursday regular guest, Nationals frontbencher Barnaby Joyce, the former Deputy Prime Minister. Barnaby Joyce, Jim Chalmers, just a slip of the tongue 3 times?
Don't think so. I think that what's emanating from most of Mr Chalmers and Mr Albanese's rhetoric is the views of the Cabinet. Obviously, what they're trying to do is walk this peculiar line where they try to make this comparison. At the start, it was Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. There's no mosques being threatened to be blown up. There are no mosques being burnt down. There's no graffiti on mosques. There is no issue with Islamophobia. There's an issue with anti-Semitism. That's what we see. We're seeing people who wish to kill Jews. And what we saw in that caravan is they wish to create a terrorist event, which would be a substantial terrorist event. Now, later on, they try to press rewind and fix it up, and I'm glad they did. I'm glad they did. There's no doubt about it. I want them to fix their narrative up, their rhetoric up. I want them to clearly understand the threat that's happening. And not only that, we had a neo-Nazi march on the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, Birkenau. This disease, this filth, is starting to spread throughout Australia. And you're right, Andrew. I don't see the controls, the check, the emphatic movement by the Labor Party to do something about this. This is like a fire that if you just sit back and watch it, it ends in no good whatsoever.
I'm just so shocked what's happening to my country, Barnaby. But I got to say, in Albanese's mitigation, this Jew hatred didn't come from, just sort of out of the ground suddenly, 15 months ago. As I've shown, you can go back to Malcolm Fraser, you could go back to Paul Keating, trying to keep a hate preacher who became our Grand Mufti in the country. What do you think was our biggest mistake, and how do we fix it now?
Well, I think that we have to recognise that now we have a large diaspora in Australia, and there has to be always the reinforcing of that egalitarian ethos, and not only just not just the narrative form, in an absolutely emphatic form. As Peter Dutton said, you need one flag. You need to clearly understand what it is to live in this nation, and people have got to understand the contract. All of us, the contract of being Australian. It means that if you are not part of the egalitarian ethos, then you don't have a place here. It's as simple as that. I don't know what we can do about Malcolm Fraser. He had so much of an opportunity, a majority in both houses, yet he seemed to live his life in the twilight and in the shadow of Gough Whitlam. Why? I don't know. He made emphatic mistakes about trying to sort of believe that you could bring people from a civil war, but leave their issues behind. Well, maybe after a few generations you can, but do we have that time? I don't know. Do you want to try and tie your nation up in something that, if it can't be solved in other parts of the world, what magic do you think is going to happen that you're going to somehow solve it here? And in the generation of the people who are actually fighting the civil war, and that goes for any civil war from any part of the world, by the way.